Hey guys, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those of you who are repeat offenders, welcome back to the Conscious Basket Show. My name is Samantha McCord and I am the founder and CEO of Conscious Basket. And on the show, we are going to be interviewing extraordinary people just trying to make a difference in this world and giving you tips on how you can too. So as always, if you like what we do, please subscribe, download a couple episodes, and leave a comment below. I will read them all. But for now, let's just dive right in.
The one right thing to do in activism, we need a lot of different things. And I also think it's not necessarily, or it's not enough to just talk to consumers. We also need politics to help. Because even though a lot of economics, and it's kind of funny because I'm studying economics, but I don't think that only the consumer can change because they're asking for the product. So it's not that simple, unfortunately. I'd really like that, but unfortunately it's not. We need to change the whole system so there's not that one right thing to do.
Today we welcome Katharina, who is a vegan activist for a group called Animal Rights Squares out of Berlin. Her group stands against all exploitation of animals, and they're working hard to create a safe place for everyone. Being a group that's against all oppression, not just animal exploitation, their goal is to unify humans with compassion and understanding. In this episode, we go over what it's like to be an activist, easy tips on how you can step up to, and how we're all in this world together, so we might as well be kind to one another. Let's dive right in. Hey guys, welcome back to the Conscious Basket Show. My name is Samantha McCord. I am the founder and CEO of Conscious Basket, and today we welcome Katharina. She is a vegan activist from Berlin, and you can catch her either on the streets of Berlin with all of her crew, making sure that everybody knows that eating animals is wrong, or if you want an easy way to connect with her, you can connect with her on Instagram at The Vegan Cat. But welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
I'm really good, actually.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
The situation, but I'm really good.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for us, for the American listeners out there. She's in Berlin. I'm in Amsterdam right now. We're in full lockdown, so please don't complain about wearing your masks.
Yeah, exactly. Masks for us are a thing that we're very happy to do right now.
Yeah, if I can go outside, I'll wear my mask.
Yeah, I probably will never forget it ever again, even after pandemics, and having it with me all the time.
Exactly. Keep it in our back pocket. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and dive right in. I wanted to just talk about, I know you're originally from Munich. You moved to Berlin about a year and a half ago. Why did you make the move?
Well, I moved because I started an apprenticeship, which was crazy at the time because I already finished, studying, already had a well-paid job. And Bavaria is very pretty and very nice to grow up in, but I felt like it wasn't really the place to be for me at the place of my time and time in my life. I basically traveled a lot. I lived in Australia for a year. And after coming back, I just really wanted to start kind of from a different place again. And because of the apprenticeship I got, I moved basically, which was a very good decision though.
Yeah. And what was the industry in for the apprenticeship?
The apprenticeship was basically a fair that is called Veginale and Fair Goods. And it's a fair about sustainability, plant-based diet, and also fair clothing, for example, everything that has to do with sustainability in the bigger sense, kind of. Okay. And I was doing all the event-related organization in regards to speakers, for example, and the whole program behind it.
Oh, nice.
That was kind of my work I was doing there.
That's a lot of coordination.
Yeah, it was. It was a great experience, though. I come from hotel and catering business, so I was kind of familiar. Very good German and English mixing is not very good. But that was basically something I was kind of familiar with, and then I was really happy actually to do it though.
Okay. And so I think that leads me perfectly into my next question. If you could tell everyone why it is you do what you do, I think that would be helpful.
Well, I'm doing what I'm doing because I basically started to think about why I'm consuming what I'm consuming and what I'm consuming and where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And it all started because when I became vegan, I started to look not only behind the animal agriculture, but basically behind everything that I was consuming. And basically after being in Australia and thinking about what I'm eating and stuff, I just felt like, okay, I need to know where it's coming from. And obviously I knew, okay, it obviously comes from animals and obviously animals have to be killed for it, but knowing it and seeing it is something totally different.
Yeah.
But you can't just walk into a slaughterhouse and be like, can I just watch, please? And, do that. So the least I could do was watching a documentary. Mm-hmm. So I watched the documentary Earthlings, mm-hmm. which is kind of old. It's about 10 years old or something, but it's still very valuable, I think. And I started watching and it was like, okay, if I'm fine with it, then I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing. And if I'm not fine with it, I'm going to go vegetarian. And after 10 minutes, I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
Because I was very shocked, which may sound a bit weird for some people because obviously you see what you already know, but still that's what I meant before. Seeing it and knowing it is something totally different. And I went vegan right after watching the movie.
Yeah.
And it became such an important thing in my life that I was like, I can't only do that in my free time. Like I can't only do activism on the street and then come back to work and continue like everything, like nothing's changed basically. And do something totally different, which has nothing to do with what I actually stand for or what I want to stand for.
Yeah.
And that is why I made the change because I used to work in consulting, going from a well-paid job in a consulting company to let's do an apprenticeship in the sustainability fair.
Yeah.
But even though it might have seemed very weird or crazy for some people, it was definitely the right decision considering where I am now and how happy I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you said something that you're like, it might seem weird for some people that, seeing is also knowing more. But I think that something I also felt like when I watched Earthlings is that I felt lied to my whole life.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand the magnitude of factory farming and the impact that it has, not just on the, animals' well-being, but the planet and our health overall.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it was anything that you did wrong. I think that the life that we live is very good at shielding us from all of that.
Yeah, it's true. Even though, like, sometimes I talk to people and especially after talking to your family, when you watch things like that and you're like, oh my God, I'm sure nobody knows. Everybody needs to know. Because I was so shocked. I was like, does not everybody freak out when they see this? Like, why is it just me freaking out here? Like, why is not everybody else freaking out? So you go to your family and you're like, did you know? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, obviously animals have to be killed. I'm like, yeah, I know. But have you seen it? And they're like, I don't need to see it. I already know. And that's why I kind of got the reaction sometimes that when I was like, did you know? I was like, yeah, obviously I did. Like, obviously I know. So I was like, so why don't you change? But then I actually find out that people haven't seen it. They know, and seeing and knowing, that's what I mean, is something totally different sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, that brings us into also what you're doing now and what you began with the animals of the voiceless, and seeing is knowing. So when you actually go out and do your activism, when you first began, can you tell them what the makeup is and how you make people see?
Yes. So when I started with Animals for the Voiceless, which I'm not doing anymore, but what we started with is basically very similar to what we're doing now, though. Is basically you have people that are dressed in black and they're standing in a cube kind of. We have usually between I don't know, 6 to 8 people or something. And they're standing back to back and they're holding laptops or even TV screens sometimes, depending on the equipment we have. And then we show footage of animal agriculture, particularly slaughterhouses, but also basically how they live. Like how does a daily life for a cow look like, for example, or how does it look like when a calf and a mother are separated from each other? We show that, and we wear the anonymous masks, not necessarily because we want to shock people like, oh, look, anonymous. It's more because we want people to concentrate on the footage and not on us. And we made the experience when people approach us, they start talking to the person standing next to or standing and holding the laptop. But for this reason, we have other people there who do outreach. So whenever somebody is approaching and they've watched the video for about, 30 seconds or something, we start talking to them. And we do this in regards to the waiting because we want to talk to people who are actually interested. We want to avoid a situation where people are standing on the street and like, here's the car, did you know? Because nobody actually wants that, if we're honest. Nobody wants to have that conversation, and we want to talk to people who are honest and honestly interested, and not just because they want to be polite. And then we basically start talking to people. And what makes it special, I think personally, is that we don't just tell them a lot of information. We basically just ask questions. So whenever people are approaching and we're like, have you seen this footage before? How do you feel when you see something like this? Yeah. Because we don't want to only educate people. We also want them to basically ask themselves if their actions are aligned with their morals, basically, and their beliefs.
And so when you do end up talking to these people, and let's say we've got a couple of interested parties, or let's say not so interested parties, there's probably a lot of those. Yes. What have you seen to be some of the results? I know it's hard to track, but what is the goal really for you guys?
Well, the goal may seem like sometimes that we want people to be vegan after that conversation, which is not our goal though. Like, obviously that would be great. Like, let's be honest, that would obviously be great, but this is not something that we think when we go into one of those conversations. We basically want to plant a seed in the sense that people start to think, and every time they see something, they start to rethink, like, wait, maybe there's something to that, what that person told me on the street, for example. Because we don't want people to just be like, yeah, she's right, and then go home and nothing changes. And also it's important for the activists, because sometimes when you're standing on the street for 5 hours or something, and you're like, nobody kind of seem to be, really getting it. It kind of burns you out a bit.
Yeah.
But you never know what happens when that person is at home and when that person talks to other people. Because maybe, when they have another conversation, they might actually look at it differently. Yeah. So the goal is basically to kind of push people a bit into, look behind the curtain and look what's going on. And maybe, just ask yourself where your food is coming from, where your clothes are coming from. Like, for me personally, and not only for me personally, like, actually veganism is not just a diet. It's basically about trying to avoid as much pain and suffering as you can. So this also involves basically any other aspect of consumption.
Yes.
So it's more than just a diet. It's basically a lifestyle of trying to avoid pain.
And I think too, when you're out on the street and like you said, you're planting seeds, it's not like you're putting a tracker on these people and you're like, yes, where are you going? What are you doing? But it's kind of like, let's say, I don't know if you've ever bought a car before, but or anything you're going to do, you have a conscious and a subconscious mind, right? And you have so much stimuli all day long. You can't physically notice everything all the time. So if someone like you comes in and you plant the seed and brings it into the consciousness, and not just it's in the subconscious, but now it's more conscious. It's kind of like if, let's say you're in Germany, we're going to buy a VW bug. And now I see the VW bug everywhere. I can't help myself but see it. It's kind of like that. Like you're planting the seed, you're bringing things to light that they never really considered before. And now they're noticing the PETA advertisements. They're noticing things pop up more and more. So it's like that real beginning jolt of awakening of, and you know, even if you don't even decide to change, you at least know that these animals are waiting around in their own shit basically, and eat cannibalism and come full of antibiotics, which makes us immune to antibiotics at this point, and just overall unhealthy eating habits, right? So, but I think that it's important to plant that seed, like you're saying, because who knows what it will blossom into.
Yeah, exactly. Like once, for example, I had a girl I was talking to, and at the time I didn't even actually believe that it was a very successful conversation in that sense. But a few weeks later, she actually got to the cube again. And she was like, you know, because she grew up on the countryside. So she saw cows standing outside, like that wonderful picture we have from, like, you know, of those milk packages when calves and their mothers are standing outside and having
their best lives. Yeah.
So she kind of saw things like that in the country. So she had a harder time to believe that things like animals standing there crowded, not being able to move at all, not seeing their calf, for example, actually exist. And she was just like, yeah, those are exceptions. But we make very clear that what we show are not like the bad cases, but like actually totally normal. Mm-hmm. And she got back to me and she was like, you know, when we were talking, I didn't even think about that at the time. But when I got home to visit my parents who still live on the countryside, I saw those cows again. And it was the first time of me asking, where are the calves? And I was like, yeah, you know, they're gone. They're not there anymore. And that actually made her stop drinking milk. Like she still eats meat, which I found interesting. But at the same time, like, you know, that was what I mean. It's planting a seed, and also it's a journey. Like it is a journey. It's not like whenever you make a major change, like I did, but just out of like shock, kind of. Yeah. It's a journey, and it's not like, who am I to judge people? Like, no, you need to do this and this tomorrow. Like I was actually very happy about her, like seeing that she starts to think about things like that, because we never do. Like we basically grow up in a way that, yeah, it's just all ours. It's on us to take everything what we want, but we don't think about, you know, those animals have families, friends, just lives like we do. Like not like we do, but do also have valuable lives. And that was the first time of her thinking about it. So I was actually very...
Yeah, I mean, every little thing that anyone does counts. I mean, if you cut dairy first, fine. I mean, a lot of people cut meat first and then they cut dairy. Whatever you want to do, any little change, even if you decide to do almond milk instead of cow's milk in your coffee, and that's the only thing you do, it still is compounding in terms of impact. So
yeah, exactly. And we are in the very privileged situation, let's say, or most of us, or a lot of us, that you can just go into the supermarket and literally go from milk one step to the right, and you have like coconut milk, even though you're not allowed to call it milk in Germany technically anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait,
like
what?
We have in the EU, we have a new legislation that we're not allowed to call plant milk anymore because it's confusing to the consumer, which is hilarious, I think, because I don't know any person who is like, what? That almond didn't get milked and didn't have a calf, and like nobody thinks that. And there are so many other things in the food system that are actually confusing and that are actually, excuse my friend, but bullshit sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we say this was sustainably sourced or this is organic, and most people don't even know what organic actually means, like the legislation behind it. So this is not confusing, but calling almond milk is confusing and kind of doesn't make sense to me. Even considering the German language, there's so many other words that really don't make sense and are confusing. But they started with milk. Anyway, we literally just go like this and buy different milk. So
what do they call milk? The coconut milk then, like coconut?
So it's basically up to the producer to come up with a new name. Oatly, for example, had a great marketing thing going on. They basically wrote on their packaging, "We're not allowed to call this milk anymore," which was great. Or, for example, Fly, which is a German pea milk producer, who's great actually. So whenever you have the chance, try it out.
Okay.
And they basically wrote milk but scratched it out, but you can still read it.
Yeah.
So things like that are things that people try. Otherwise, they basically try and say this is almond drink, an almond drink. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It just kills me because it's like very clearly this is a lobby of people, and this is coming from my opinion, everyone. So don't get your panties in a bunch. But I think that this is a lobby situation where the dairy industry is just trying to impact the increased sales and their decrease in sales.
Yeah,
and at the same time, if you look at, let's say, I just found this. It's a cookie sheet. So when you go cooking, you put a cookie sheet down. The box that I found, it said it was recyclable. It said it was recyclable cookie sheet. And then I did some digging and I found out that just the box itself was recyclable, not the actual cookie sheets. So who actually is greenwashing or, being just outwardly like, this is just ridiculous. I'm sorry. I didn't know that this was something that was happening. Excuse me for my rant just now.
No, like you should have seen me when this got out. Like, but I totally agree with you. Like, obviously I have, well, not obviously, but I have no statistics on this, but I totally agree that this comes from a very strong lobby. And like, they're losing a lot of money. However, the farmers, for example, are people who suffer because of that a lot as well. Like, it's not the good vegans and the bad farmers on the other side. Like, farmers try to basically earn money for their families, try to sustain their life. And that whole food system that we have right now, and especially animal agriculture, basically causes a lot of suffering on both ends. And farmers, like, it's very expensive to have a cow and to raise a cow, which is why a lot of farmers actually don't have the money to give them a good life in that sense. So, they're suffering as well, but there are great alternatives. Like, there's a company that's called Refarmed. They're very small in Germany. However, they're already operating in Switzerland. And they're helping farmers to switch from animal agriculture, so from the milk and dairy industry, to oat milk, which is great because for the farmer, there's way less work involved than raising an animal, but they're getting better money out of it. And basically, the idea behind it is that the calves you're having and the cows you're having, they can stay in the farm, basically kind of like an animal sanctuary. And you earn money with the oat milk. And it's also sustainable, or as sustainable as it can be in the system we're living in, with glass bottles. And the farmers basically work together with small shops, or you have basically like a contract where every week you get 2 liters of milk, for example, and return the bottle so you don't need a new bottle every time. So there are a lot of great alternatives out there and a lot of people trying to think about alternatives. So, there's hope.
Yeah, I mean, there's always hope. There's always hope. And that you're just so good at my little segues here, giving me little nuggets. But thinking of hope, and let's say that somebody's listening right now, they're like, I want to be an activist. I want to do this. What advice would you give to baby activists out there?
Well, to baby activists, I'd say try to find something that is also fun. Like, It doesn't need to be this thing where you're giving up yourself for the animals or for the environment, and basically doing whatever you can, but don't looking after yourself. And it doesn't help anybody to burn out. It's actually better to look after yourself while you're doing activism so you can do it as long as possible.
Yeah.
And so doing something that's also fun for you helps, and finding people who are also invested in it really helps, because a good community is also very nourishing in that sense. And also try to find something that you're good at, because not everybody is good on being an activist on the street. Not everybody is good in, doing social media posts. Some people don't have social media, don't want to have it, which is totally fine as well, obviously. There's not the one right thing to do in activism. We need a lot of different things. And I also think it's not necessarily, it's not enough to just talk to consumers. We also need politics to help, because even though a lot of economics, and it's kind of funny because I'm studying economics, but I don't think that only the consumer can change because they're asking for the product. So it's not that simple, unfortunately. I'd really like that, but unfortunately it's not. We need to change the whole system, so there's not that one right thing to do. That would basically be my advice. And activism can be fun as well, even though it sounds like it's not sometimes, and sometimes it's not, which is why you need a good community and look after yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it can be very daunting. I mean, you're trying to make change in this world that a lot of people don't recognize. I mean, I think 4% of people recognize as being vegan. So you got 96% of the world to convince the other way. So that can seem like a huge, a bunch of the world on your shoulders, but it doesn't seem to stop you, because you ended up actually starting your own group instead of being with the Animals for the Voiceless. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So I started my own group in Munich, but the group I'm in now is because I stopped being in Munich. Is not the group I've started. It's basically the group that used to be Animals for the Voiceless. But we split from Animals for the Voiceless and basically do a very similar thing, but not under that name. So basically we call each other and ourselves Animal Rights Square. And basically the only difference is that our group has the opinion that oppression is connected, and that there's not a hierarchy of oppression. Even though animal suffering is huge and immense and horrible, it doesn't mean that all the other horrible things going on are not worth considering and not worth paying attention to. And especially when the whole Black Lives Matter thing happened, we felt like we have to take a stance on that. Even though we concentrate on animal rights, we still thought it was important to say, racism is horrible, it's bad, and sexism is as well, for example. And you can fight for animals and also say you're against racism and sexism. And that was something that we just wanted to pay more attention to and to set clear within the group, kind of. And that was basically an opinion that we had, that Animals for the Voiceless didn't in that sense. So we split up in that way kind of, and do very similar things, which is totally fine because they said that, they are happy if we do activism, and the more activism, the better. So that was a very peaceful split kind of. So that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's true that, your main focus is, speaking for the voiceless and the animals, but there's so many other groups of people that are voiceless, like you had mentioned.
Yes.
I mean, our experiences as individuals, whether you're white, black, female, male, an animal, human, I mean, there's always someone being taken advantage of by somebody in power or somebody looking to gain power. And the fact that you guys stand up for these people and animals and any sentient being is, my heart goes out to you guys. So thank you for doing that. Just to round things out for the end of the episode, if you were to tell the listeners, one thing, if they left the episode with one thing this round, what would you want people to know?
I would rather want people to ask themselves the question, if I can't watch an animal being hurt or slaughtered, if it's not good enough for my eyes, why is it good enough for my stomach? And then just ask yourself, are my actions aligned with my values? Because most of us actually have the value and the morals and the belief that nobody, if it's a human, animal or not, should be unnecessarily hurt. And it takes nothing away from a person to be kind.
Mm-hmm. That's true. On that note, guys, stop being assholes to each other. No, I'm just kidding. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kat. It was really nice to have you on, and thank you for all the hard work that you do out there on the streets in Berlin, and all the outreach that you do. If you guys want to follow her for any really amazing facts about what's actually going on in the world today, you can hit her up on Instagram at The Vegan Cat. I'll put it in the show notes. But thanks again for joining, and we'll see you guys all next time. And bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining us on another episode of Conscious Basket. And just a small reminder, Conscious Basket is not just hosting interviews. We are in the process of launching our marketplace, where our goal is to make it super easy for you to make conscious decisions about what you're buying by knowing the origin of the products and services. We're using our technology to highlight a transparent supply chain with our vendors, which means you know what goes into those products and where they came from to make sure those things you buy don't weigh on your conscience. And to ensure this peace of mind, we have developed a score to rank the sustainability of the purchase. For instance, how much water is being used, trees saved, animal lives, human rights, and so on. So, if you're an entrepreneur with a sustainable product and would be interested in being on the platform, please email us at info@consciousbasket.com. Also, if you're an entrepreneur, thought leader, or academic that would like to be a guest on the show, please drop us a line at the same email. And if you're just interested in taking a closer look at us, you can also take a look at our website, which is www.consciousbasket.com. And as always, you can explore the topics we discussed in the show notes and find many more topics on all of our social platforms. So give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Conscious Basket. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to our show and leave us a comment with any key takeaways. I read them all. Share with your friends, family, post a screenshot on your social about the podcast so that we can extend our reach to help propel our movement forward. Finally, just another small reminder that perfectionism is not the goal here. In my opinion, perfectionism is what gets in the way of all of us collectively picking what I like to call your thing, which is whatever you choose to make a positive impact on this world. Thank you again for joining us.